that would still have pigs and they had good litters. And then the next time, the next bunch of sows that I tried to breed never got pregnant.
The industry has stated that this stuff will not move around and they can keep it pure. And the little bit of work that I've done with this, there's no way that they can keep this from cross-pollinating and keeping it pure. They don't have a clue what was in my corn, really, I don't think, after seeing everything that we did with the limited amount of testing that we've done so far.
When you harvest a crop like corn or canola, just in general, you can't pick up all the seeds. So what happens is some of the seeds stay dormant in the field for the next year and come up the next year.
2,4-D won't kill corn. Paraquat, I'm not for sure about. There is stuff that'll kill corn, Roundup corn, but it's not financially sensible to go out and spray 50 acres for 50 stalks of corn, where you can go out there in a half a day and walk the field and you're done.
In Canada, they grow canola that does not die if you spray it with a particular herbicide. Now, let's say you are planting another crop in that same field the next year, but that canola comes up and you want to kill it because now it's a weed. So you can't use that particular herbicide, for example, Roundup. You use something else. Now, sometimes they'll cross-pollinate and you'll get one canola that's resistant to 3 different types of herbicide. So what they're doing is they're using much more deadly types of herbicide to kill off this herbicide-tolerant volunteer canola.
You should be running up into the 90% conception rate. 30% don't pay bills. Makes bills. The ones that did conceive, the quality of pigs weren't there. They just didn't perform like the rest of them.
We had a meeting with seed corn company representatives of Garst Seed Company. There was like, I think 5 farmers. We all met at Jerry Roseman's farm, which included me and Kenny Escher, the guy I farm with, and Jerry Roseman, and the 2 Kaufmans, Leland Kaufman and his brother, were there talking to them, or actually wanting to quiz them about the corn and the hybrids, and as to what we all planted, whether there was any resemblance or the same corn. Well, it turned out we were planting different numbers of corn, but they had the same parent lines. The corn did.
Well, here we are. Here's some of the corn that I still have that we're doing testing on. Just perfect.
En el caso de la Sierra Juárez, podríamos decir que los campesinos no siembran para vender. En este caso, la gente siembra para comer y necesita que las semillas, que los granos, tengan las características de sabor, de textura, de aguante también en el tiempo, de rendimiento, etcétera.
Primero la altura, está muy grandote. Luego el número de mazorcas. Luego la posición que tienen es anormal también, porque aquí en las variedades criollas de repente sí aparecen 2 mazorcas, pero están seguidas. Este es el tallo, aquí hay uno y luego hay otro aquí. Las hojas, sobre todo las de la punta. Normalmente aquí la milpa se llama la última hoja, que después sale la espiga. No envuelve a la espiga, no hace esto, sino la espiga sale y sale, y ahí no. Y luego la de que las hojas están muy anchas.
Nice corn. The people out of Baylor University in Houston, Texas, they had published the most recent set of papers on experiments with furan fatty acid isolated from corn. They hadn't gone into the fact of seeing whether it was from genetically altered corn or not. All they were working with was the furan fatty acid. They had put trials together, and the rats did exactly the same thing as what our hogs and cattle were doing. The females would go into this where the uteruses would take on water. They'd go into a false pregnancy. The males would go sterile. It was a cycling thing, and there's a toxic level in there. And we determined that with the animals, that there was a certain percentage of these animals could tolerate more of this than others, and hence that's where we were coming up with that 20% floor level in there, where it seemed like part of them could stand it and would go ahead and produce. With the cattle, and this is the one that really caught us off guard, because as far as from a toxin standpoint, a ruminant animal is a very toxin tolerant. I mean, they're garbage disposals. They can handle everything under the sun because of their 4 stomachs. They can process all this. Well, it took longer, but the cattle reached a tolerance point with it too, and our calving rates or reproduction rates dropped down to about 50%. It's kind of interesting, when we finally decided in 2001 that this corn was a problem in the fall, I had contacted 3 or 4 newspapers. March, April of 2002, I made another plea, basically sent some faxed out to 2 or 3 different magazines, and I had a little more data by that time, and I just says, we need to talk about this. And the Wallace's farmer sent a reporter. He came right out, and the Farm Bureau spokesman sent a reporter out, and he put a little story together. And of course, the Wallace's farmer, he says, I got to research this to make sure it's all just right before we do it. So, in the meantime, the spokesman, they cranked one out the next week, and it hit the mailboxes on Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday noon, I was starting to get phone calls from all over the state of Iowa. And one particular individual, he had some of the quote top reproductive researchers from Iowa State were down there, and they kept blaming their equipment. There was a problem with it, and I told him, I says, you tell him that there's nothing wrong with his machines. They're working fine. All they're going to find is bags of water in there. And he says, I asked him about your story this morning, and he says, there's nothing to it. I says, when's he coming back out? And he says, tomorrow. Well, I said, just go ahead and just sacrifice a couple of animals right on the spot, or take them to a locker plant and cut them open and see what you're going to find. Next evening, I got a call back, and he says, we found just what you said you was going to be there. It was just water. After that, I got a phone call from the researcher up at Iowa State. And I had talked to him once or twice earlier in the winter, and he just had blown me off, saying that this was impossible, couldn't be happening, and it must be a management thing, That's always his thing, was management, And so I went and talked to Danny and Leland, and I said, I hear you're having some reproductive problems. They go, yeah, we're having this, and that. And I said, you're still planting Garst hybrids? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, let me have some corn. I said, we need to do a little testing. Because I said, I don't think you're having that it's a management thing here. I said, I think you've got some outside forces on this deal. And we tested the corn, and sure enough, that fusarium was in it. And then they started going back on their records, and sure enough, the problems started manifesting itself when they started using the Garst hybrids. August of 2001, in my farmyard, and we had Leland was there, and Ralph was there. I had my veterinarian, which was also Ralph's veterinary, and I had my nutritionist, and the Garst people. They sent 2 of their big representatives out, and we're going through and we're talking about problems that we're having, and we're saying that we've got there's 5